Welcome back to another Expert Talks with Crawoo. Very excited to have you all here with me today. My name is Anisha. I will be your host for our lovely chat. I'm very excited for today's chat because we're talking kitchens. So far, we've had some amazing design experts talking paint. We talked basic interior design rules, tips on all sorts of things, mixing fabrics and textures and picking design. Oh, it was great. So go check out our last few expert talks. What's the most crucial element in a kitchen?
Functionality, functionality, functionality. If you can't find the things that you need while you're cooking or having dishwasher close enough in proximity to you, I can't tell you how many kitchens I've seen laid out, looks beautiful, but not practical or functional in the way that it needs to be, because people are not really thinking about where things need to go and what they need to store. A lot of people end up having extra storage outside kitchens because they didn't properly store for the interior. So functionality always.
What's the most common problem you see in most kitchens with that in mind?
With that in mind, a lot of dead corner cabinets happen. People either don't want to think about what can be stored in the actual corner area. You can have a lazy Susan corner cabinets, pull-outs. There's so many different things that you can put to use up those corners. That, and the other biggest thing that people don't put in that they should is under cabinet lighting. That's huge. Just task lighting working in your kitchen. You've got overhead lights that are shining down, helping cast shadows. So task lighting underneath cabinets actually helps you to really see the areas that you're working in.
Okay, where would you start? In a kitchen?
So the first thing that when we have a client, we interview them, get all the stuff out of the way of what they like, what they're looking for. But the thing I really like to focus on is what stuff do they have? What do they actually use? What do they need still? And how do they need to use it? And, where does it need to be located? So whether you have one or two chefs that are in the kitchen, if, somebody's left-handed, right-handed, all of that plays into how a kitchen needs to be organized. You need to have, obviously, you said most people have the issue of not enough storage within their kitchen. And oddly enough, if you kind of take everything out and restart and rethink about where things need to go, there's better ways to organize it so that you actually can get back some of that space. I've seen countless people throw Tupperware, just into a drawer. Well, maybe the drawer is better used for something else. Tupperware can be stacked at the back of the shelf or in one area so that you can get at it a little differently. I'm also a big proponent of adding drawers over cabinet doors in general. So drawers are easier to pull towards you and see everything rather than you getting down on hands and knees to dig through the back.
So then, say the kitchen is already built, you've got these cabinets, you can't really fix it by adding drawers, or maybe you don't have the budget. What's a way to utilize that back area?
Getting bins, like one large bin that you can collectively put things in. So it's almost like a substitute for a drawer. You're manually pulling it out, but happens a lot for people that have kids. So you've got the little kid plates. So for example, in my own kitchen, because I have two kids, I have in the corner unit, I have one that pulls out, but I've got them in baskets. So all their little kid plates are stacked in a row, and then, cups, all that together. So we can actually take the whole thing out if we need to. It gives you just a little bit more flexibility to get that stuff. Because if you leave it to its own devices, it's just going to hang out to the back and you'll never see it again.
What about drawer organizers? Is there, like, for utensils and wooden spoons, that whole thing?
Yeah, there's a slew. You go to Target, you go to Container Store, Bed Bath & Beyond, Amazon, everybody's got some variation of organizers, depending on what your drawers are. So it's just really important to measure. People make the mistake of measuring the front of their drawers. You actually need to measure the interior opening and make sure that you've got enough room for that drawer to close. So it's just making sure you've got the proper height, and it's not even the proper height for the storage organizer. You got to factor in for utensils the height of the utensil, once it's in the storage organizer, can that still close? So it's, it comes into play a lot for like pantries. A lot of, you see it on, TikTok and Instagram, a lot of those organizing videos, which, yeah, it's it's definitely fun to look at.
Yeah.
So it's just making sure that you are getting the proper things to store in there. And it's kind of like the game of Tetris. It's literally fitting all these little pieces in to create the whole thing that you need so that you can store everything that you need to go in those spaces. And then labeling. I love my label maker.
Well, would you say that labels are also helpful in terms of keeping certain things separate? Is it important to, like with kids and adults, like would you say that helps a lot as well?
Yeah, I mean, I have a 4-year-old who can't read the labels yet, but my 10-year-old knows. And so we keep, for kids, we keep things lower so that they can get their areas. They know what their designated areas are of things that they can get to. But labels in general, just, it helps you stay on point with putting things back. You empty your dishwasher and maybe you forget where you're storing something or whatever it may be because you've just reorganized your kitchen. It just helps to keep things organized and a little bit more consistent and clear.
When it comes to, you're starting from the ground up, you're designing your dream kitchen, you've really got like this open plan. What do I do? What kind of design tips?
So where to start's always the hardest. Again, like I mentioned, we do a full questionnaire based on what people like, what they're looking for. The best place to start in general for anybody is, pictures, Pinterest, House, even magazines. Pulling things that you like. The more you pull, the more a designer or somebody that's trying to help you can figure out the trend of what you like, whether it's consistent. Usually it is. People usually, even if they pick things that are completely opposite ends, there's something significant within each picture that you pick that kind of follows a trend of maybe it's a shaped kitchen that you really like, or maybe you really like this huge island. And then it's making sure that these, I call it the Bentley wish list, that you can get these items. Some people start with a small kitchen or have a small kitchen space and they can't get a big island in. So it's finding creative ways to do, give you that same sort of look or appeal. Maybe you can't get a full island in, but you can get a peninsula. So you still have a little bit of that coming out feel where you can have bar chairs and counter stools and that kind of thing sit up to it and still talk to people. So it's just making sure that it's in a way that it's functionality based and that it works in the way that you need to either cook, entertain, or, kind of all of the following. A kitchen's a big gathering spot. So even if you're the only one cooking in it, there's 10 to 1, there's going to be people all over the place when you have people over. So it's making sure you don't have them in your space while you're trying to do what you need to do.
What are some good options for seating in a kitchen if they don't have that much space?
They don't have that much space, so it all depends on what a kitchen looks like. We've done little breakfast tables that have actually served as a prep station as well. You clean the table off. You do things like a marble top, something that doesn't absorb a lot of bacteria and things like that, can be easily wiped down. Things like that, surfaces that are easier to clean, that's the way that you can get seating within a kitchen and still have a prep area. I mentioned a peninsula. That's another way to still have your work surface and then people can sit, on the other side. But for the most part, you really want to try to not have seating within your kitchen. Understandably, apartments, condos, smaller spaces have a lot of merged areas. And that's where you find a lot of people sitting and eating in the living rooms because there's no room anywhere else. So every situation's different. And I wish I could give a very definitive answer, but literally I've seen multi-million-dollar homes that have 2 kitchens to tiny little areas that have barely a kitchenette. That's more of, what you would consider like a little hotel kitchenette. Right. So I've seen the gambit, and it's just finding creative solutions so that people can still work, entertain, and do what they need to do within that space.
One, is there materials that people should stay away from or should gear toward?
Yeah, it depends how you cook. So there's certain people that cook with certain spices. It comes into play like in a lot of kind of Asian cultures or anything that uses curry. You want to be careful, even if you have marble, which is fine. But no, it has to be sealed every year in order to maintain the seal, period. So if you don't and you're cleaning it or you're cleaning it wrong, things like that, any food or spices that splatter can stain. Wine is another perfect example. So it's not that necessarily you need to avoid them. It's just you need to take into account how you work and operate within a kitchen to know whether that's going to be the best solution for you. So what we probably tell people the most is to use quartz. It's very inexpensive, things like this. You're able to get the look of like marbles without the cost, although it's catching up. But quartz it's non-porous. So for that alone, if you spill wine, it's not something that you have to worry about sealing every year. But I will say there are certain things you have to be careful. If you have let's say a Viking stove, and it's got a very high BTU output, it can actually, because it's not 100% quartz, it's like 93% quartz, the rest is resin binder, it can actually cause the resin to yellow and sometimes to even melt. So I've seen a lot of designers that don't really know product as well specify things, put, because it looks beautiful to have countertop on the front and up the wall, but they're not factoring in that the burner might put out too high of a heat and can ruin the material. So it's just being incredibly careful of what you put in and whether it works with everything that you have. So your appliances, functionality, all of that. If you have a window that's full sun, maybe you don't want to do a quartz that is a very cheap quartz because the resin in it will also yellow over time. So same thing with cabinetry. A lot of people don't really realize that maple yellows over time. Every single wood product will change its tone over time with a lot of sunlight. So there's just things that you want to be careful of. Make sure there's sealers on things, and take those sort of different scenarios into mind when you're actually building and specifying things.
I wonder how that plays a part in kitchens. Window dressings, curtains, is that?
So I don't do a lot of window treatments in kitchens just because honestly, most people don't close them. So for that, it's more just a aesthetically pleasing sort of deal. Some people do, if you've got a kitchen that say is south facing and it's constant heat and light all the time, or eastern facing, which is actually my kitchen at home, we have a little cafe curtain that we pull down just so when you're in there, you're not blinded.
Right.
So functional aspect, it's important to have the proper ones. Roller shades are really good for that. But a lot of times people just don't close them. So don't feel you have to make a giant investment in a window treatment. Really kind of sit with the space and see if it does require a window treatment. Usually it's for privacy, of course, but there's alternate ways that you can still get privacy. There's films that you can put on glass, frosted type of things. I know people that have done that for privacy in a bathroom shower, for example. But it's just making sure that it's safe, no materials near a stove. That's really, 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 really dangerous.
Okay.
And I've even seen certain things where cords hang down towards, thankfully, the whole window treatment industry has kind of put the kibosh on cords loosely hanging. Now they clip off. But I've seen somebody get it stuck in a dishwasher or a garbage disposal once. So long strings, continuous cords, whatever it is, make sure that it is up and away so that it doesn't get kind of looped in with functional things that you're using, your pots, your pans, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Kitchens really require a lot of detailed thinking.
Kitchens and bathrooms require more work than anything else. Because those areas you're more likely to have an accident. Any place involving water, there's a slip factor that happens. There's an electrocution happening that could happen. So it's really important to have things in proper spaces and places and have things, GFCI outlets. Those are the ones that if for some reason water gets on the counter, goes towards your toaster, it'll turn off so that you won't get electrocuted. Yeah. So that's hugely important. Any electrician will tell you if you don't have them, you need to get a grounding rod and make sure things are.
Let's talk a little bit about the walk space. How can you tell if something is nice and open, or what is a good walk space? What is that?
Anyone knows from working in a kitchen if it feels comfortable to you. The code is about 36-inch walk space. I prefer 42 to 48. I feel the space you give, it feels better. Not to mention, there's almost never just one person in the kitchen. There's only one person that cooks. In my kitchen alone, my husband cooks, and our refrigerators are right at the opening. All of us pass through there 15 times. So we have a clearance space from our little peninsula that comes out to the pantry to make sure there's enough clearance. So if it were any tighter, you wouldn't be able to open the drawer and have somebody get past. Or some places I've seen, you can't even open a drawer all the way because they've got it so tight that there's not enough room for a person really to sit in front of a drawer to pull it open. So I've seen a lot of mistakes, a lot of them. Everybody has an idea of what they want to get in. They order things, you know, in a kitchen or wherever it may be, get it put in, and, you know, maybe they did it themselves and they just did it wrong. So making sure you have a proper workspace within your kitchen, and also factoring in if other people need to go in there.
What's the most common mistake you see when people are designing their kitchens?
Not following the work triangle. So your refrigerator, your stove, and your sink all need to be in a total of 26 feet within each other. So it adds up. So let's say it's stove is 5 feet from the refrigerator, sink is another 10, and then you take the next distance of what that is. So if it's further away, it just gets a lot more complicated for people to use. So you don't want to be at your sink trying to wash vegetables and need to grab something else and have to go all the way across, you know, depends how big your kitchen is, right? But you don't want to have to go all around an island all the way to the other side to get to this thing. Yeah. So that's making sure there's prep sinks or other things in place that help you to be able to not track water all over the place or, you know, run from one end to the other. So that's mostly from a functional aspect, as you've heard me say a million times now. I'm very functional based. So making sure you've got these things properly laid out. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
What about your number one, like, must have, like, top tip, kind of an underrated, like, what do people forget?
What do they forget? Spice rack storage, actually. I've seen a lot of interesting things of where people put them. It's not necessarily what they forget, it's where they place it. A lot of people place it really high above next to their stove, and what ends up happening is all the vapors from when you cook affect your spices. So you really want to keep those as far away. Most people do. So when you look at your spices, or if you have maybe poor ventilation within your kitchen and you start seeing your spices collect and clump together, it's because it's catching all that grease and all that vapor from whatever you're cooking. So it'll actually change the taste of your spices over time and can actually make some of them even get a little disgusting. So making sure those are far enough away. So I actually prefer spice storage to be down below because of the fact that vapors go up. So that's one hot little tip. Just mind your spice storage.
Thank you for chatting with me again.
Thank you.
So fun. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.